In pretty much all my projects, I use lots and lots of wires, and every time I have to get the ruler out, measure the length, mark it with a pen, then use a cutting tool to cut it, then use another tool to strip both ends of the wire. All of this just for one single wire. Doing 4 steps every time for a wire is just not good enough and takes way too long, and I have to repeat this for all of the wires needed. This slows you down and it's not really fun to do. So I decided to make a machine that does it all for you. You simply choose some measurement on a screen, press a button, and it will simply do it all. It will strip both ends of the wire, cut it to the chosen measurements, and all wires gets collected in this container. And in this video, we're going to see how this all works. The project is made up of 4 main parts: a spool holder to hold the wire, something to move the wire with, blades to cut and strip the wire, and a container to hold all the wires when they are cut. Let's now see how all these steps are done in more detail. For the spool holder, we use 3 different parts: a stand, a cylinder, and a plug. The stand and the cylinder attaches together like this, and then the spool of the wire is simply placed in, and the cap is used to prevent the spool from falling off. For the whole project, we'll be using this board to attach everything to, so let's attach the spool holder to it as a start. Now we have a place where we can hold the wire spool, which is the beginning of this contraption. Now for the second part, we need a way to hold and move the wire. For this, we can actually use an extruder, which is what is used in 3D printers to move the filament. An extruder simply takes grip of the wire using a spring and moves it using a stepper motor, so when the stepper motor rotates, the wire moves. This is a very great option because an extruder operates with high precision. This is needed for this project since we want to cut and strip the wires based on length that we specifically choose. So now we can add the extruder to the board and we can feed the wire through it. Now the first 2 stages are done, and the wire is now ready for the blades for cutting and stripping, which is the third and main part of this project. To cut and strip the wire, I use these 2 V-blades. So we will have one fixed blade at the bottom and the other blade on top that we can move up and down. To illustrate how these 2 blades will work, let's put a wire through the blades. This is the core of the wire and this is the wire insulation. To strip the wire, the top blade will simply move down a certain depth to only cut the insulation, hence stripping the wire. And to cut the wire, the top blade will simply move all the way down until it goes through the whole wire and cuts it. In this way, using only these 2 blades, we can easily strip our wire depending on how far we go down without damaging the core of the wire and cut it by going all the way down. This actually turned out to be very effective. Now to actually do this in real life and not only in diagrams, let's first start by fixing the bottom blade to the board like this. The blade is attached to a nice solid base so it doesn't move when under pressure from the top blade. Now for the top blade, we need a way to move it up and down with precision. To do this, we need to use linear motion. So on either side of the bottom blade there are 2 stepper motors with threaded rods and 2 nuts. The top blade part simply attaches to these nuts like this, and now when the stepper motors rotate at the same time, the top blade moves up and down depending on what direction the motors spin. In this way, we can precisely control the position of the top blade using the 2 stepper motors very easily. So now when looking at the project from the start, we get the wire from the spool holder, it goes in through the wire extruder to move it, and then the wire exits on the other side. However, we can see that it doesn't quite reach the blades. To solve this, we can simply use a cylinder tube like this. So now, when the wire moves, it goes right through the gap between the 2 blades, ready to be dealt with. For the final part, the container, it is simply attached using 2 magnets like this. So when the wires are cut, they fall right into the container. So now we have all our 4 main parts done. However, we are missing a way to control all of this. For this, I use an OLED display, which you can control using this rotary encoder. There are 5 different measurements that you can control. In the top of the screen, we can see a small little wire representation. This is the wire core, and this is the wire insulation. This is used to reference the 3 measurements below it. First is the left side stripping length, then it is the wire length, then the right side stripping length. This cell is for the quantity of wires needed, and this cell is for the stripping depth that we mentioned here, which is pretty much how far you want the top blade to cut into the insulation of the wire. And that right there is the project done. We have the spool holder, the wire feeder, the blades, the container, and a wake to control it all. Now, let's see it all in action in some demos. Let's say we want a wire that has a stripping length of 1 centimeter on both sides and a wire length of 3 centimeters. So we choose 10, 30, and 10 for our top measurements, as this is in millimeters. And let's create 2 of these wires, so 2 on the quantity. And I found that for 22 gauge wire, a depth of 46 is perfect for the stripping. Now, when I press the start, it will simply give us these 2 wires in those exact measurements. And to confirm the measurements of the wires, let's just put them against a ruler. We can see that it's actually pretty accurate, which is great to see. You can even do super small wires like this, which would have otherwise been very tricky to do by hand. To further test its accuracy, let's create wire sizes from 1 centimeter all the way to 15 centimeters in 1 centimeter increments. As we can see, in pretty much all sizes, it has very good accurate measurements, which is exactly what we need. So using this contraption in a project, you can simply get a list of all the wires you need and easily enter them into the machine to get them perfectly stripped and cut to the length, saving you lots of time, which is much more efficient and fun than doing it all manually like we discussed in the beginning. And that right there is the project completed. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future projects, which are only going to get better and better. As with all projects I do, if you want to create this project yourself, all the wiring, code, 3D printed parts, and everything else you need can be found in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next project.